Oh, I'm sorry. I took a page out of Starfield's book. The video gets good 10 minutes in. You're gonna need to wait. Starfield, one of the most hyped games of all time, mostly due to Microsoft's inability to put out any exclusives for Xbox, has released, and it has caused a gigantic amount of polarization across the gaming landscape. Everyone has something to say about Starfield, but all of them aren't me, so most of them are wrong when they talk about Starfield, huh? So, the truth? Starfield sucks. A lot. And a lot of the issues that Starfield suffers from come from one place, that being the scale of the game. However, you will see that as we begin looking into the specifics of why Starfield sucks, I broke this down into what I consider the big three, and we will start off with the first one now. First off, if you're gonna make a space travel game, you must, have actual space travel. Not this. In a game based on exploring the stars, expanding player freedom, you need to get the basics of a space travel game down pat. For some reason, seeing Elena Pierce actually do this, go all the way to the planet's edge.
Ooh. It was flat. Wait, but it still says 0. Hang on. Am I inside Pluto? What happens if I turn around from here? We're inside of Pluto. We're definitely inside of Pluto. I wonder how long does it now take to get out of Pluto? Do I just live here now?
We see that Bethesda, for some reason, did not think that that was worth their time. It should be easy to implement space travel. And if it wasn't easy to implement, then make a different game. However, instead, Todd and Co. decided to move forward. They decided to attempt something that could have been potentially hard. And I don't think any of the devs in Todd and Co. are stupid. I think they are creatively just fairly bankrupt at this point, but even in the most basic standard, Bethesda has failed. In fact, being in your ship is not even a requirement most of the time. Fast travel from the ground to the next system you would like to go to. You have severely impacted any immersion that could be possible in Starfield. For a player to feel immersed, there have to be a few things, most important being the player must understand the rules of the world. In Baldur's Gate 3, when playing as a paladin, you make an oath to a god to behave in a certain manner and follow certain tenets. Failure to follow these results in you losing your powers. Your god forsakes you, and you're left being more immersed as a consequence. If the player understands the rules, then it makes it possible for situations to challenge them, not just in combat or gameplay necessarily. You need to take into account your choices. They force you to engage with the world the way other characters do, making you immerse yourself in the world. In Starfield, this immersion is broken. At every step, space travel is the main mode of travel. It is critical for you to continue your exploration. Being a good pilot is even one of the skills you can get better in, pointing you to the importance of space travel and piloting your ship. Yet when you are only in your ship for a minute amount of time, then this immersion is broken. You do not engage in the world the same as every other character. Instead, you are a god that transcends the laws of this world, making you think more about a loading screen rather than engaging in the world as it stands. Combat. It's been around for centuries, since the ancient Greeks grappling to determine the winner of the Olympics, or the great general Napoleon who used his great minds to defeat larger forces. And you will combine these two forces, strength and the brains, to defeat your enemies in Starfield. LOL, JK, bro. No. Combat in Starfield is more akin to you chasing after someone who owes you money. All the enemies in this game will run away from you so often that you will be chasing them more often than the reverse. Even if you don't chase them, you don't even need to bother looking at them. Just start looting. Now, there is something to like. The feedback you get from enemies is cool. They are communicating with each other. Things like the reloading animations look really nice and add to immersion. However, if the fear of losing is non-existent, then what is the point? Even on higher difficulties, the damage output from enemies goes up, but the AI is still horrid. Even at low health, enemies will run away to reload instead of just trying to finish you off. This is bad. There are also only 2 enemy types in the entire game. 2. You got your shooties, because they'll be the ones that you fight most often, and melee guys. And don't you dare start thinking that the melee guys are gonna, scare you out of cover, because Starfield is a game that is way too easy to cheese. I have two theories on why the gameplay is like this. The first being that realism was the goal here. Realism, if it's the goal, is a horrible goal. Why would you insist on making your world more boring? Why would you insist that your game is made better by being even more like our boring reality? Even though most game devs today know that they cannot achieve true realism, the amount of little pointless details, tiny nuances that you would have to start adding, or even just pointless mechanics that would, yes, make your game more interesting and real, maybe, but by that point, you would be so deep into making this pseudo-revolutionary fighting game that you forget to focus on the The second theory simply being that the game is just too big. Each decision you make as a game dev means something. If you work on gameplay, you're losing time that could be spent expanding your story or RPG choices. Yet, if that gameplay ends up being amazing, then no one will care. Bethesda decided to simply do the bare minimum across all of these areas of focus. Instead of deciding that RPG choices or the story is the main aspect we want to focus on, with our gameplay being not great, but serviceable, which would have resulted in a game that is carried by at least one great aspect. Instead, Bethesda decided to spread themselves too thin again, and instead made everything mediocre. How do you not focus on space travel in a game revolving around space travel? This is not one of the most pivotal parts of the game. It truly astounds me how stupid Bethesda Game Studios is. That leaves the last aspect, the thing that Bethesda have allegedly built their games around for decades: immersive RPG storytelling. From Oblivion to Fallout 3, and no, I'm not bringing up Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is a fake RPG. Fight me, you cowards. Bethesda has allegedly focused around player agency and player character creation. You are making a character with their own wants, desires, and a personality. Adding on to that, Bethesda has prided itself allegedly on worlds that are immersive, and they want them to feel real, like different factions behaving in different ways, making them feel distinct from one another. But in their story and quest design, they have failed spectacularly in this. I brought up that for a player to feel immersed in a world, they have to know the rules. This can simply be a character wanting to hire you for a job and saying, don't unalive anyone, like in the Ryujin storyline. Ryujin is a stereotypical future hyper-capitalist company engaging in corporate espionage. It's not original, but that's not my criticism. Instead, we need to look at how the quests are at odds with the rules of the world. Ryujin employees task you with stealing, unaliving people, and sabotaging competitors. Like one mission where you are tasked with sabotaging Hope Tech, a rival company's newest product, or some other dumb crap. You would think sneaking into a factory of a rival company would require a lot of thought. You gotta scout the site, decide on a plan, and worry if you even have the stealth skills necessary to actually sneak in undetected. But no, actually, it was pretty easy.
No, we don't want to mess on this one. A body count will only distract from what we're trying to accomplish here.
Not useful enough to avoid a body count?
This is most of what you will be doing in Starfield, and with Bethesda's incompetent management, everything became worse. Even missions where you are told not to do something, and that bad things will happen if you don't do exactly as we say. Bethesda doesn't know what the term player freedom means. Player freedom to them means that the player is free from consequence and free to do absolutely anything, even if it breaks immersion in the world. Bethesda uses player freedom as a crutch to not implement anything interesting or worthwhile content-wise. They don't want to create a world that reacts to you, they want to create a world that merely panders enough to you that Bethesda can have plausible deniability to their own laziness in their design. This isn't the only event that does not make sense. The Crimson Fleet, the bad guys in the game, the only faction I have had a smidge of fun or interesting characters to interact with. This faction also did not get the attention it deserved because Bethesda doesn't make interesting worlds, they make bland and passable worlds. The first scene you see when getting onto the Crimson Fleet's base sets the tone for what you should kind of expect these guys to act like.
You wanted 4K, you got 4K. Not my problem.
If you're stealing from me, you bet your ass it's your problem.
If you threaten someone or cheat someone, you will pay the price. However, you get threatened. by one of the characters of the Crimson Fleet who was kicked out because of your actions. He says,
"Thanks to you, Delgado's cutting me from the fleet. Well, you know what? You better get your own fleet, because I'm coming after you."
so what do? Well, I follow the example the game gave me. But when I do that, what happens? Starfield is a game of contradictions. Bethesda says we want you to feel immersed, except we don't take the time to adequately implement the things needed to do that. Instead, Bethesda simply does a passable job, which is the Bethesda standard at this point. When you didn't feel the need to make space travel work the way it should, when you can't make combat challenging and engaging, and of course, when your world's rules are broken, crippling any immersion that can happen, that's all usually a bug for other studios, but for Bethesda, it's a feature. And you know what the glaring issue for Bethesda is? That their work today is indistinguishable from some half-baked AI generation program just doing the work for them. I wouldn't be surprised if many side quests or main quests were made with AI due to how repetitive and boring they are, which I would understand because, hey, the game is too big. What do you want us to do? Oh, well, I don't know. How about you make a smaller game? Bethesda likes making games this big because it's easier for them to get away with just using AI generation to make most of the game for them. Because they don't want to be creative, they want to be lazy. Starfield sucks, and Bethesda, by virtue of their own decisions, created one of the most overhyped and under-delivering games I have borne witness to. No amount of Xbox fans sending unaliving threats to Dan Stapleton, the IGN reviewer of Starfield, and hiding review codes from legitimate review sites can stop reasonable critique of your game. I will not allow corporate manipulation to simply try to keep reasonable critique down. Microsoft needed Starfield to be successful, and it isn't unheard of for some of these companies in this space to throw their weight around a little bit. Starfield is not a game of the year, in any sense, but is it the worst game? No. It's a 7 out of 10 game, and they rightly earned it. Starfield is an average, skin-deep version of what real games are, and it's a pale comparison to what great RPGs in the genre are. But, hey, at least we got Baldur's Gate 3, huh? Tell me in the comments what you guys think. If you even like the video. If you don't like the video, guess what? Daddy needs his external validation, but YouTube doesn't care if it's negative or positive, so go ahead, dislike the video or like the video. Really doesn't matter. I'm also on Twitter, actually. Go ahead and put my @BradenVoice. I'm a voice actor as well. You know where to find me. You know what I do. Bye-bye.